cheats or what have you. And if not, you got to give it to me. So, his wife is basically like, tell me the answer to the riddle and give me the answer. And she cries and begs for the answer to the riddle. He gives it to her and tells the people who basically come to him and, solve the riddle in time. So, he's pissed and he go kill a bunch of them. And, when he gets back, they basically marry his wife off to his friend. So, crazy story. So we know as it goes on, eventually, he gets pissed and he takes a bunch of foxes or what have you and ties fire to their tail. They run through the fields of the Philistines and burn up their vegetables or what have you. What they planted. And the Hebrews basically turn him over to the Philistines, like, hey, here go the dude who basically did it. And it's Samson. He's like super strong. God basically tells him, if you don't cut your hair, if you don't drink, or eat anything unclean, then you'll have super strength. Again, a fairy tale story within the Bible. He's super strong. So, Samson basically takes a jawbone of a donkey and kills a shitload of Philistines. As you know, the story is crazy. And eventually he would, marry Delilah. Samson and Delilah, everybody know the story. And the Philistines would come to Delilah and say, hey, you need to find out what is the source of Samson's strength. She go to him, asks him. He give her 2 wrong answers, and then finally he tells her the truth about his hair. So she basically, bounds him and cut his hair off while he sleeps. She cuts his hair off, and then the Philistines come in there and they tie him up and everything like that, and they put him into bondage. And over time, his hair starts to grow back, and they basically decide that they want to, I guess, make fun or have some fun with Samson. So they bring him out, and they tie him to the poles. And his hair is growing back, and he basically prays to God to give him his strength back, that he'll pull down the pillars and kill all the Philistines and kill himself as well. And that's basically how Samson dies. He pulls down the pillars, and everything come crashing down, and he die, and they die. Just to paraphrase the whole story. So now you have the death of Samson. Samson's gone. There's no judge, no ruler of Israel, nobody there to basically, lead them into battle, what have you. And they go back to doing evil stuff again, worshiping Baal and doing all kinds of crazy, sick stuff. So eventually it will get out of hand. You have the Benjamites who basically try to have sex with this man. And the man basically is like, nah, I'm going to give you my wife. Y'all can have sex with my wife. And they basically rape her repeatedly until they kill her. So he basically takes her body, chops it up in 12 pieces, and sends each piece, he sends a piece to all the 12 tribes and tells them basically what happened. So God basically lets them all come together, and they basically kill about 20,000 Benjamites. And then the ones that's left over basically repopulates the tribe. All in the Bible, rape. These people are supposed to be the chosen people, supposed to be good. And again, it's just one of those things you're looking at as, what's going on? What's taking place? That these people are supposed to be the good people, and they're doing so much evil, but they keep getting second chances over and over again. And this, for the people who can see it, is giving you exactly the Europeans and what's taking place, what they have been able to effectively do over time. Commit crimes, genocide. They go into different civilizations and they fail and they fall, but they get lifted up every time because, somebody is sent there to bring the civilization out of the brink of basically extinction. So when you go and look at the history of these European countries, you'll have, like it's talking about with the plague, the Black Death or what have you, the people just so messed up that they can't even have correct hygiene. They create all these diseases or what have you, and they are constantly saved over and over again. How? By monarchy, by a king being put in place. When you pay attention and you look at these European countries, you have a situation, a system in place, and it's giving you exactly what has taken place with the Europeans, how they came up. They kept disobeying, which is giving you the metaphor. They kept going against what they should be doing as far as following the powers that be, and they fell. And we had many instances where land is taken over, but they come together, take it back, or the people go into a state of poverty, starvation or it's some kind of plague or what have you, and then the rest of the tribe or somebody comes in and becomes the ruler or the leader and brings that land back. This is what's basically taking place throughout world history. When you pay attention and you look in deeper at a lot of these European civilizations. So looking at it, on a biblical sense, it just doesn't fit, with all this stuff going on. And, clearly God is the one that's going to bring them out of the situation. Why keep turning away from them? Everything is there to give you the hint of what really took place, what's really going on, because it don't make sense. The story it doesn't make sense for them to keep disobeying. It's trying to give you those clues of what's taking place and how these people came in many different positions of power, many different civilizations, and was able to sustain it by, the more powerful civilizations coming to their aid and putting them in the right place. The judges, so to speak. So Samson, of course, fictional story. It's Hercules, clear as day, never happened. And you got to pay attention and look at the stories and look at how they setting this stuff up. It just don't work. So it's a lot more that you got to look at. Benjamites, rape, and is these people chosen? What is their deal? What's going on? No sane person can read all this stuff and believe this is actually true and that some kind of good and just God would allow this stuff to keep happening over and over again for centuries. Now, one of the things that the book of Judges is hitting at that we'll see in 1 Samuel is that, it's trying to give people the understanding that there must be a ruler. There must be someone there to tell the people what to do. And this is just something that creeps in everybody's head that they feel like, well, if it ain't no God, how we going to know right from wrong? When right from wrong is something that you already know. You know it's wrong to kill. You know it's wrong to steal. It's something that growing up that people who are of a mind of, civilized people can tell you. Don't do this unto people. This is stuff your parents can teach you. Clear as day. Don't need no book. Don't need no God. But it's giving people the understanding that you should have a ruler. You should have somebody there to tell you what to do. If not, if the people are not held in check, this is what can happen. And this is the way that people ask for their oppression. Ask for a ruler to come in and take over. And this is giving people that thought. And a lot of people think this way still to this day. Well, if it's not a leader, things is going to be crazy. And you got to understand that it's not going to be really any problems if it's not poverty. Plain and simple. If nobody is coming in to steal your shit, because they don't need to steal, they have everything that they need, there will not be any crime. So again, if you have a society of people that come together, that work together, that make sure everybody is fed and taken care of, and the sick is taken care of, and there's nobody teasing other people because they have way more and people have so little, that's crime is going to set in. If you got a whole bunch, I have nothing, and you won't help me out, then I'm going to take because I have nothing left to live for. Nothing at all. I'm going to die anyway if I don't do nothing, so I might as well do something. So if you have a civilization that is just and right and fair and the people are taken care of, you're going to have a good civilization. It's not giving you that point in the Bible. It's not saying that, well, everybody was cool, everybody was fine. You have to ask yourself, what is it that's causing these people to keep on disobeying? To keep on separating from God and keep on messing up? What is it that's causing this problem? Could it be poverty? Can't be poverty. Y'all done ransacked so many villages and civilization. Everybody should have enough. What is it? What's going on? That these people just want to worship this God that has given them nothing. And that's one of the points. It's not hitting at what's happening. What are they getting from Baal that they can't get from God, when God is clearly the one that's putting the evil on them, that's putting them in bondage and then taking them out? It don't fit. It don't make sense. You got to look at it and that whole paradigm. And it's crazy. It's crazy. And when you understand it like we understand it, it's a story. It's telling you something else. Any sane person reading this book on a level cannot read this stuff and tell me it's supposed to be and that it happened, that this is how it's supposed to go. It don't make sense. It just don't fit at all. So this is what the Bible believing Christians and the Hebrews or what have you want you to believe, that this stuff is all the way it's supposed to be, and that, you know, people are just so dumb to keep on disobeying a God that's clearly with them and giving them everything that they could possibly want. So basically, the entire book of Judges is just that. You have stories of them, disobeying God, getting put into, bondage, what have you, and then being saved, so on and so forth. This keeps happening. And eventually, it ends with the whole Benjamite story, with the Hebrews surrounding the Benjamites and basically killing almost all of them. And it's basically how it ends. And now Israel is worse off than ever. There's no ruler. You have a bunch of Hebrews that's dead and gone. They're basically trying to salvage what's left. You have a lot of people who are losing faith. And they're basically saying here, last two verses of Judges 21. This is 24. It's only 21 chapters. This is 24. It says, "And the children of Israel departed thence at that time, every man to his tribe and to his family. And they went out from thence, every man to his inheritance." Basically split up. "In those days there was no king in Israel. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes." And this is how Judges ends. And again, as I said, it just raises a lot more questions. Just don't fit. Every man did what was right within his own eyes. In his own eyes. Basically, forget the laws that we've been raised up to believe, and forget everything that's been happening. Forget the fact that we keep seeing civilization after civilization of Hebrews die and kill and be conquered and enslaved because they disobey God. How could you then go on to do anything other than obey God? For what reason? What is the point here? It doesn't fit. So you have the people who basically go into their lives and worry about their own family or what have you, and sin and do whatever they feel is right. And it's chaos. So we look at it today, and if we put it in the same context, we would kill. If the stories was true, which we know they're not, we would kill to have such favor from the supposed God that all we got to do is follow these rules and do this, and we cool. It don't make sense to disobey. But the Hebrews do so over and over again and are saved over and over again, and it keep happening the whole book. Look at how many people came in and saved them after each time. And again, they're trying to fit this within their doctrine and saying, well, we just kept sinning over and over and over, all the way up to the time of slavery. And what happened? Oh, well, God sent the white man on us, and then he enslaved us, and then this is where we are. Now we got to come together and pray to God and get it right. So God sent us a deliverer to save us from, this basic bondage that we in right now, being oppressed by the white man. You see how it can fit when you look at it in that context. To them and to the people who get into the religion, the Hebrew Israelites, this is how they look at it. This is how they justify it and ignore all the stupid common sense shit. Even if it was true, even if it was, why the hell would I want to be a part of a bunch of stupid ass Hebrews that they can't do what's right? And you would still have to explain who these false Hebrews is and why all this stuff seems to fit them. It don't make sense. Everything is conveniently put there, and then we just ignore the fact that, the white man gets to do anything that he wants and gets away with it. Plain and simple. And the white man can have everything he wants on this planet and repent and be a Christian or what have you and just be good and then still get everything he wants in heaven. It don't fit. The story, if we follow it, or the doctrine, if we follow it, only benefits them, and it destroys us. It destroys who we truly are in our real history, and it's bogus. It's bullshit, especially considering the fact that these Hebrews mixed in with African people, and they want you to separate from African people when they're clearly, African. It's just weird, everything is just like, The only thing that fits is exactly what I have been teaching. It's the fact that, one, we're talking about Hebrews or the Greeks. Everything they're talking about and giving to us as saying, Hebrews conquered this and conquered that, we follow with the conquering of the Greeks and the Romans or what have you, and we don't see this stuff in real history with any kind of Hebrew, and nobody is mentioning them. It's the only thing that fits, and all the proof is right there. So we look at real history, and you see, this whole 40-year pattern that we find in the Bible. That's one. 40 years of everything is fine, and then they disobey God and they go in captivity for how long, but then they are saved again. We don't find this. When you go and trace our people, what happens to us? We have the Arab slave trade later. Let's say all that stuff was happening, and then up until the point where the Arab slave trade happened, 40 years before that, what have you, we was enslaved by somebody else, or we was doing well. It's not the case. We don't find that in real history. We find one, Egypt being conquered. We find Israel being conquered, and those lands taken from us by the Greeks and the Romans. So we are put in bondage at that point. The ones who do flee would eventually be enslaved by the Arabs and picked up in the Arab slave trade for hundreds of years. Not 40 years, hundreds of years. Where's that in the Bible? That's not even in the Bible when they're giving you the sub-Saharan slave trade. The enslavement of African people in the hands of the Arabs. We don't see that. It was way longer than 40 years. But then you have the empires that would arise that are African empires. So much history happened around this time that is not being put into the Bible at all. Kings that arose, people with power. It's not in there. Everything that it's talking about is happening in this one small area that we supposed to deem holy, and so much other stuff happened outside of this area that's major. And that's another part that nobody wants to explain. Why is everything happening within this one point, this one area? It's common sense, and this area happens to be the territory that was in the conquering, and in the whole empire of the Greeks and the Romans. I mean, there it is. Now, if you got the Greeks completely off of your radar, then you're not going to see it. If you don't know about the Greek histories and mythologies, you're not going to see it. If you're not actually reading the book, you're not going to see it. Everything is put for you right there for people to see, and to make that comparison of Greek history versus the biblical history, and to see who it really truly belongs to. And it's clearly the Greeks. So that basically ends the book of Judges. And we're going to get into the book of Ruth, which is basically only 4 chapters long. And probably why they did that, since, Judges is short, and it's a little message in the book of Ruth, which we're going to get into. But Judges is exactly that, what we've talked about. And it's not really much more to get into, but to see the reason why they created these books and why they put this stuff there, which we're going to come back eventually to Judges to show you a couple things. But it's important to understand what took place, and to know at this point, Israel doesn't have any rulers or leaders, and it's something that they understand that other civilizations have, and they're going to basically ask for their own destruction, as we'll see. But all this stuff is put there to lead up to exactly what the Hebrews is telling you about, Deuteronomy 28 and the whole enslavement and the curse of Deuteronomy and everything like that. And as we follow it, we're going to see, how this stuff plays out, and it's just crazy. So for now, let's get into the book of Ruth. So now, the book of Ruth, and after the carnage, all the death and murder and all the horrible stuff that happens, in the previous books, you have the book of Ruth, especially coming out of the book of Judges with all that stuff going on. And the book of Ruth is actually a good story. It's a beautiful story when you read it. And it's a reason for that, which we'll get into at the end of the book. But, it basically is trying to give people the understanding, on a biblical sense, that things can just be done normally. And I guess at this time, they don't want people to keep thinking that, this guy has to be in everything, and God has to always be around, and nothing is normal, it seems like, when you read in the book. So you have, with the book of Ruth, you basically have a Bethlehem family. You have Elimelech and his 2 sons and his wife Naomi. So they're basically in Bethlehem, and they're trying to escape Bethlehem because of famine. So they want to get out of Bethlehem and go somewhere where it's food. So they end up going into the land of Moab, which is, as we read, basically an enemy of, the Hebrews, that land. So they go into Moab, and they basically have food and everything is fine for 10 years or what have you, but Elimelech dies, the father, and his two sons basically take two wives, which is Orpah and Naomi. So you have two sons, Orpah and Naomi, and the mom Naomi, who is now a widow. So now you have the two sons, they basically die. So now you have three women that's just left, Orpah, Naomi, and Ruth. So, Naomi, she's basically like, I'm just going to go back to Bethlehem, go back to Israel, to my home. You guys should stay here. It's going to be better for you here amongst your own people. Now, Orpah, she like, all right, cool, I'm going to stay here. But Ruth is like, she feels a sense of devotion to Naomi. So they basically, talk about it, and she convinces Naomi to let her tag along or what have you, and they go back to Israel, what have you, to Bethlehem, and they basically try to come up with a plan on how to get food and how we're going to survive, how we're going to eat. It's not good for a woman, to be a widow that at that age and to be out there. It's going to be hard for her to survive. So, Ruth ends up basically in a barley field or what have you, in a grain field, and she's getting food for them at the grain field, which just so happened to be owned by a man named Boaz, who is like a rich dude. So he's a good guy. Basically owns that land, and he basically makes it so that Ruth, after he does some investigation, he finds out, her information, where she's from, and what happened, and he's like touched, like she would actually go ahead and, say, because Ruth is like, wherever she says to Naomi, Ruth says, wherever you go, I'm going to go. Your people is my people. Your God is my God. So when he found out about all that, then he basically, he likes her. He said, okay, cool. I'm going to make it so you could come here, or you can pick grain and you can eat and you'll be okay. And I'm basically going to ask God to bless you or what have you. So she goes back home. She tells Naomi, hey, I met this dude, who making everything cool for us when we're able to eat. His name is Boaz. And Naomi is like, oh shit, Boaz, he is basically our family redeemer. And if you pay attention in the older stories about the redeemers, remember it's law in Hebrew law that they have a redeemer, somebody who basically can come in. Like if you die and your wife is a widow, somebody can come from that family or that generation or what have you to marry her, to redeem the family, to bring the family back. So that way, the Jews are smart. They just smart when you think about it in that context, that, okay, you die, now you're a widow and you got kids to raise, and I'm a single man. I'm going to come in and marry you and make the family whole again. Smart stuff. So she's like, okay, well, he's one of the redeemers. He can basically redeem the family. Of course, Naomi is too old to marry him, but you have Ruth. So they come up with a plan to try to basically get Boaz to, marry Ruth, to redeem the family, to make it so them two can basically be okay. So Ruth basically, sneaks over to him while he's sleeping and lays, by his feet, which is basically like a sign of submission. She basically changes her clothes and, get rid of the whole widow look, to try to make herself seem more available, so he can understand that she's available. So, once she does all that, then he's like, all right, cool. She basically, asks him to, hey, won't you marry me and redeem the family or what have you? And he's with it. So they basically start making plans. But in doing so, he finds out that it's somebody else that's closer to the family, that's in line to basically be the redeemer before him. But when the guy finds out that she's a Moabite, which is, remember, they was kind of sort of against Israel, so he don't want to marry a Moabite, so he basically backs out because he don't know her. Good thing, Moab knows her and understands she's a good woman and everything like that, so he's happy, and he basically marries her. So the whole point of the story is only, as I said, like 4 chapters. It's very short. The whole thing is, Boaz, he marries Ruth, which secures the future for him and Naomi. Boaz and Ruth have a baby. Now, that baby would be the grandfather of David, King David, and that's what it's all about. This is the beginning of the lineage that will bring about Jesus Christ. So you have the birth of the grandfather of David, and this is how it came to be. And that's the point of the story, for them to make it a beautiful, nice story. And one of the main things that you realize in the story is not so much, one, it's not no murder and a killing. God is not really mentioned at all in the story. He just says, I'm just basically going to pray for you. But God is not mentioned as doing anything spooky or spiritual to make something happen. It's just a normal story. So they wanted to really establish that, that normalness, if that's word, but for it to be a normal way that the lineage of Jesus was brought about, to make it almost more human-like or easy, and to escape all the death and murder and destruction, because you don't want it to be that the Messiah, what have you, or David was brought about, his bloodline, from a bunch of madness and murder or what have you. It would kind of make him not seem as, righteous or what have you. So they give you the beautiful story of Ruth. And it's short, but it's a good story. And they're trying to make that point that, it don't have to be nothing spooky. Ruth was loyal to Naomi, and Boaz was loyal, and these loyal people did good things, and good stuff happened to them, and God ain't had to intervene. It was just them being good people, and everything worked out for them. So one of the things with Ruth, it being a good story, still, puts you in that whole thought process of, if we having good stories and common sense stories like this take place, where people are obeying, the law and being loyal and everything like that, it makes it seem more far-fetched that so many of the people of the Hebrews or what have you, the Israelites, are disobeying God so much and causing so much craziness to happen. When you read a story like that, it's like you have a story that's just easy common sense. The people was, famine, they left to go find food, and they found wives that did normal stuff. They didn't go kill nobody and do nothing. They just was living. How is it that there's so much widespread murder and chaos going on with everybody else, when we find these stories of just seemingly good people doing normal stuff? And you have a rich dude, Moab, who basically goes out his way to make sure this woman is right, and everything is cool, and he fulfills the basic laws of the Hebrews, to basically be the redeemer for the family and what have you, and so on and so forth, and everything is done right. But then you have this continued disobeying, seemingly, from most of the Hebrews. But you find stories like this. Again, this is like almost like product placement for them to put this story right at the end of all this carnage and everything, because at this point they're probably looking at it as, well, the reader is probably like not a believer at this point. The reader is probably like, God is freaking crazy. The reader is like, these Hebrews are crazy. This doesn't make sense. So let's put this story in. Take God out of the equation, make it as if the people can just do things. But to the person who's really analyzing the story, it doesn't make sense. You would expect more of this stuff to be happening and going on, that these people got the common sense and the rationality to understand that God is by their side and looking out for them and trying to help them, while disobey them. Do everything right, and you have a beautiful outcome, such as the story of Ruth. And you would think this is happening, but no, we got all this craziness, and it doesn't fit with common sense. Having everything given to you, and the power to rule and conquer, and everything go the way a normal sane person would want it to go. Why would you disobey that? So whatever the Hebrews are doing in their life during this time, to worship this Baal, they're getting nothing. It's like, we're worshiping Baal, and what's happening? We're getting conquered. And then we're going to worship the God we're supposed to worship, and then he frees us. He sends a redeemer. So why would we ever go back to worshiping Baal? I mean, it's just common sense stuff. And you can't fathom it when you pay attention to it. But it's important that we look at this stuff when getting into these stories, to understand how they're trying to make this stuff fit with what Deuteronomy 28 is talking about, and what basically will befall the Hebrews, which supposedly, according to them, is us. So it's a lot more to get into with these 8 books, but eventually we'll get into the books that's going to basically be corresponding, for us to go back and look at these 8 books that we just, really got into. So eventually you'll get into verses and you'll see, where the real esoteric stuff starts to come into play when we start getting into the later verses. So it's crazy. I mean, you can read the Bible straight through, but you can also go from book to book. But when you're doing analysis, you want to read a book the way it's supposed to be read. One of the things that they'll tell you, same thing with the book of Joshua, same thing with the book of Judges, is that it's all over the place. They'll say that, well, the writer of the book, didn't put stuff in chronological order. They're going to say the same thing about 1 Samuel, which is next. So we can't really tell. I mean, when you get into, a lot of people don't read it, you have to really read the criticism and the summaries of these books. When you read the summaries of these books, I look at the scholars that basically, summarize the book and really analyze the book. They all say the same stuff all the time. No way in the world this person wrote it. No way we can tell this person exists. This book was likely written after the time they say. But one of the things they try to do, you see a lot of scholars try to still say what they say, but still keep it in that time frame of before the 4th century BCE. Anybody who does this, I don't pay no attention to anything else they have to say, because I know it's bullshit. You can't tell me all this stuff is going on during this time and we can't find nothing. The only people we find is the Greeks, and that's one of the reasons why they do it, to try to get you to make that connection. A lot of people are not making that connection. Pay attention to why they always putting you during this time of Greek conquest to try to match this story up. Again, when you try to put it with the Egyptians, another thing they do, you try to take the time back. They might say 1000 BCE, what have you. We know the Egyptians is ruling. So understand what the verse is talking about and why they give us this time frame, because they want you to put it together, those pieces. And it's not really for us to put together, as I said, but the people who really do the research will put it together and understand that, wait a minute, historically, real history, we're talking about one people, and that's the Greeks. Then later we'll get into the Romans. There's nobody else that fit this stuff. We can't find nothing on the Hebrews for real, as far as real history, except within the book itself. So you got to look outside the book. So when I talk to these people who want to stay within the book, you can't get nowhere that way, because then you're bound by the book and everything that it says. Plain and simple. In reality, it doesn't fit. So you can't stay bound by a book that doesn't fit actual reality and then say that this book that has absolutely nothing to back it up is the real true story. I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. You won't believe a man named Samson has super strength because he ain't never cut his hair. I mean, it don't make sense. I mean, it's just crazy. So we got to look at all this stuff. It's tough for a lot of people to criticize the books, to dig deeper into them. A lot of people have faith still rooted in biblical religion, and it's hard for them to really break this stuff down. But the main thing is, we know people have not read the book. They have not read the book. They have not had an analysis the way you are getting right now in these videos, and they have not been asking critical questions or having critical thoughts about a lot of the stuff in these books. We just accept what we was told, and we kept it moving. We accepted the stories and we kept it moving. We didn't really do any research or be critical about what we was told about a man with long hair and him having super strength and being able to basically rip a lion apart and everything like that. But yeah, it's crazy. So we got to look at all this and say, what is it? It has to be something more to the story, which it is. And that's the point of these books, these DVDs, to get this stuff out for you to see the different side and be able to ask the questions. You may have, thought of questions that I have not even touched upon in the videos. And that's the good part, for you to be really thinking and have your brain stewing about what else could possibly fit within this whole breakdown. So it's a lot to look into and a lot to consider when we're looking at these books. And the book of Judges, clearly, you know, it doesn't really present a people that is worthy of what God is offering. Just that simple. And, you know, you would think God will look to other people to be holy. You can't pick a better people on this planet than us. We have never attacked anyone. Just that simple. You can't find in history an instance where you have an African civilization that has modernized and weaponized and went out to go and conquer other lands. It just didn't happen. There was no reason for it. Again, spiritual and physical people. And for God to be a spiritual being and want to really choose spiritual people, you would think it would be us. And in reality, it's trying to tell you in the Bible, it is us. But something happened. There's a lot more to it. It's a lot going on that we got to discover. So as I said, I don't expect people to get this kind of breakdown or this kind of understanding from the books. Again, a lot of people are just lost in reading the book and not being able to understand it. For instance, when you get into, Joshua and Judges with, basically Joshua, the second half of the book is just the breakdown of land, the breakdown of possessions of the conquered, the people who was conquered. So who want to read all that? I mean, take a look at it. Who wants to read this stuff? And the thing is, people think they're missing a bunch of stuff by not really getting into it, and it just scrambles their brain in it, and they just, they don't want to read no more. So this is another one of the reasons why I wanted to do the breakdown and get you to understand. A lot of this stuff is it's bullshit. It's bullshit. It has some meaning to it, but nothing that's really going to, add to the overall meaning of the book and the messages is really trying to give you. Trust and believe that what I'm giving you in these series is stuff that you need to know, and to remember that we're going to come back to a lot of these books and point some stuff out later on. So that's really important to understand and to know. But you're not going to find too many people that's going to give you or get this kind of breakdown of the books and try to put it in context of real life and what's really going on and what the book is really talking about. But we got to keep digging, because there's a lot more, and it's going to get even more deeper as we go along, especially once we start getting to the books that correspond with these books so far. We only, at the 8th book. So going next into 1 Samuel, it just gets crazier. So we're going to get into that book next. But I want to thank you guys for taking the time to purchase and support. And I've been busy, and I have a lot going on business-wise that I'm trying to do. And it seems like, when I'm home, things get kind of hectic, and I lose track. And I'm always busy with something, and it's just crazy. So I wanted to basically get out of the house and check myself into a hotel and get some work done. Get these books out. It's a lot of people that really like the series and is really, into it. And, it being 66 books, I wanted to get it out as quickly as possible. But, it's going to be sometimes going to be long gaps or months in between this series. So I want to do as much as I can when I have the time. And not have my phone blowing up all crazy and what have you at home, and having so much work to do. So it's important to get this stuff out to me. I really want to get this stuff done and get you guys within the proper understanding of the Bible and what it's heading towards and what it's trying to tell us. So again, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch and purchase and support. And I'll see you guys next video in 1 Samuel. Thanks for watching.